As I'm guessing it's time for a guest. Over to you.
Our next guest will take us from astronaut to 60 and then to infinity and beyond. He's the real-life rocket man blasting across the country this autumn with part 2 of his tour, Astronauts, the quest to explore space. And you're never lost in space when you hear Tim Peake speak.
Tim Peake, everybody! One more time from the team, it's Tim Peake.
He's a spaceman!
Excellent. Very good.
Hello, Chris.
How are you, mate?
I'm very well. Good to see you again.
He's an actual spaceman. So here we go. This is the second leg of the tour following its debut last autumn. All right, so this is Tim Peake Astronauts, the quest to explore space. Tickets available now from timpeake.com. Talking of second legs, you're on the front page of the papers this week. Maybe part 2 of your actual astronaut experience yourself, because you may be going back to space, according to some of our newspapers in the UK this week. What can you tell us?
Yes, yeah, well, very exciting. We've been working on this mission for a while. I'm advising Axiom Space, an American company, who are building the next space station after the ISS. And they're also building the spacesuits for NASA to go back to the moon. And at the moment, they're flying astronaut missions. In fact, one of them is due to launch next week. And we're trying to put together an all-UK mission. So that's really exciting.
So where are we with that?
It's going through commercial funding, because this is no taxpayer cost at all. We have a great British science programme, education outreach programme, but a fully commercially sponsored mission, which is kind of the future model in this new age of the space economy. So we're raising money for that.
So, we've all costed like weekends away and things. How's the costing go?
Yeah.
Can you give us an insight into it? Because there's people listening who might want to get involved with that.
I mean, it's pretty expensive. An entire mission, you're kind of looking in the region of £200 million. So it's not cheap, but of course what we're doing in space is utterly amazing at the moment.
So the person who won the Euro Millions on Tuesday in Ireland, 208 million.
Yeah, there you go.
In Ireland, and they claimed it, didn't they? On yesterday morning, they claimed the cash, so they could sponsor the whole mission and still have £8 million left.
Fantastic! You get a nice house, a great car for that, and you get a trip to space.
Yeah. So can they go as well?
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, we've had spaceflight participants, as they called, going on Axiom flights into, to the space station with a few months of training. You can, as long as you're medically fit, you can go.
I didn't know this. This is all very interesting. So, do you get your name on the side of a rocket, or like a bit? Do you get a bit of Elon action going on? What?
Yeah, it's really interesting, because for some companies that have been involved in space for a while, maybe in the pharmaceutical sector or the engineering or material science, it's very obvious. They know exactly what they're going to do in terms of research over the next few years. But for other companies, like in the banking sector or in the retail sector, it's a whole new world of kind of sponsoring missions and what you can do in space. And
have I imagined it? Did Pepsi once sponsor the space shuttle? Have I imagined
I think
that?
there were discussions with NASA about it. I'm not sure if they actually went ahead with it, but yeah, the discussions went quite far, and everyone was talking about maybe we'll have a shuttle with Pepsi on the side of it.
Now, you're talking about pharmaceutical companies there and other companies that know what they want from a space mission. Did we talk about microchips last time you were on?
We were, I think, yeah. I mean, there's a company in Wales, Spaceforge, which are doing amazing things. When we grow things in space, they're very pure. There's no gravity, no sedimentation. So fragile structures and small structures can grow very pure in a weightless environment. And silicon substrates for our microprocessors are very, very efficient. If the silicon wafer is grown in space, then it's low power, low thermal output, really efficient, and it could be an entirely new way of making microprocessors.
It really does sound like you know what you're talking about. It's incredible, isn't it? I heard that the company in Wales, they figured out a way to make it more cost efficient to send the manufacture of microchips up into space, because somehow if you do that enough, it gets cheaper.
Yeah, and really, you've got to hand it to SpaceX in that respect, because they're the company that have brought down the cost of getting to space, which was, astronomical back in the days of the shuttle.
Astronomical, everybody.
It was.
Yeah.
Thought I'd slip that in there.
Do you have loads of those?
I've got a few
more
more
of
to
these,
come.
buy tickets for Tim's tour. timpeake.com.
just working through the list. Yeah, so they've made it much, much cheaper. They're reusing the rocket, and that's the thing. The most difficult thing about, or the most expensive thing about the rocket is the rocket itself. So if you can bring the rocket back and just throw the fuel in and go again, and it makes it much cheaper.
Which is the most expensive bit of a rocket?
I mean, the engines are very expensive, so you always want to kind of bring them back. So that's probably the most. And also, if it's a crewed rocket, then the life support systems.
What does that mean? Sorry, what does that mean?
So if we're sending cargo up into space, yeah. So cargo rockets, obviously, they don't have to be as safe, and we can take more risk.
Oh, you mean crewed as in C-R-E-W-E-D?
Yeah, crewed as in human spaceflight.
Right,
so if you've got humans on board, then you've got life support systems that keep the crew alive, and then they have to be rated to a higher level of safety. So that makes it more expensive.
Blimey, O'Reilly. SpaceX, do you work with SpaceX at all? Have you been to SpaceX?
I visited and I trained when I was on the space station. I captured one of their cargo vehicles with a robotic arm, docked it, and looked after it. It was amazing because it's the other cargo vehicles that arrive. They're not that special. You open them, they're an ordinary sort of metal hulled thing. You open up a SpaceX Dragon cargo vehicle, and it's gleaming white with ultraviolet lights. It's almost like steam comes out when you open that. It's how a spacecraft should look.
Is it showbiz? A bit of
yeah,
showbiz going on.
absolutely.
That's what you want,
bit of showmanship there.
So they talk about the Dragon. Musk was talking about the Dragon a couple of weeks ago. Is that like in your world? Is that a really sort of a groundbreaking piece of apparatus?
It's groundbreaking in terms of, well, it's got a brilliant safety record, but also it's groundbreaking just again in terms of the cost. And it's a very modern spacecraft using new technologies, lots of software, and so that's the kind of the model that we're using for going back to the moon as well. And
SpaceX, are they the dominant player at the moment in space?
They are the dominant launch provider. So, but you really think of SpaceX like an Uber. It gets you there and back,
right?
And they're doing a brilliant job of that. But what's really exciting is that just gets you to space. Then it opens up the whole door of opportunity. Is what do you do when you're there? And so actually, that's what's really exciting, even more exciting.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because also yesterday in the paper, so the talk of you going back to space was Monday, Tuesday in the newspapers. Yesterday there was the whole 2040, bringing the timeline forward for us inhabiting in a domestic fashion, or the beginnings of domesticity, or domesticating the moon and Mars. What have you heard about that?
Yes, well, the Artemis program is still ongoing. That's the moon program, and we're looking at the South Pole, which is a really interesting area. Lots of water ice, so where there's water, it makes it easier for habitation, and you can have a rocket fuel out of the...
Can you put a deposit down on anything out there at the moment?
Probably not, but there are, both the Chinese and the Artemis program are all looking at the kind of a race to the moon, if you like, beyond International Space Station.
Is it a bit like the gold rush? Is it like, because you used to be able to stake a claim. There's a hotel in California where the guy who staked his claim to own that hotel, I think he might be still around. He was definitely still alive when I was there. Is the moon up for grabs because nobody owns it?
That's a really interesting question. At the moment, nobody owns space. Nobody's allowed to under the 1967 United Nations Outer Space Agreement. But it raises a really interesting question, because whilst you can't own space, you can own the resources that you extract from it. And there's a lot of discussion at the moment about how do we regulate space, how are we going to control this in an environment where lots of companies, lots of state nations might be trying to get there. And do we need to have something like a freehold leasehold where the United Nations owns the moon? We all own the moon, but then it can have a leasehold agreement to companies that might want to go and use it.
And can we talk about when there was that talk in the 60s about blowing the moon up to prove that you were I think it was Russia that said we might blow the moon. There was rumours that Russia was going to explode the moon, and then we thought, well, what do we do about the moon? And of course, the moon affects us in many different ways because of the magnetic.
Yeah, that would be a bad idea.
It would be a bad idea, but then I did some reading about it, and I thought apparently we can survive without the moon, but things would be different.
That's really interesting. I haven't read about that.
By the way, I'm not going to take you to task on it.
Things would be very different. There's lots of questions about whether life would have even evolved on Earth without the moon, just because it gives the tides, and the tides helped in those early days.
Loads of other stuff.
Absolutely. And you think how much of life is tied to the cycle of the moon.
Yeah. We think how much of life is, yet we forget so often that that's the case. And if we remember on a daily basis, it will help us out, won't it, in many ways?
I think, remembering how attached we are to nature in general, it will help us out. I mean, it's good for us on mental health when you get
Have
outside.
I imagined this? I seem to be imagining most of this interview. Have I imagined this? Was the moon part of Earth?
Yes, in the early formation of the solar system, the theory is that a small planet struck the early Earth, major collision, major impact, all that debris went out into Earth's orbit, clumped together and formed what's now our moon.
So I haven't imagined that.
No, not at all.
That's one bit of this interview I have not imagined.
Yeah. And that's why the moon is really exciting, because that's like a pristine 4 billion year old historical museum of the early Earth. If we go there, we can learn things about our own planet.
This is so good, Tim. You're always so good. There's so much to ask you all the time. So you are on the second leg of your tour. You've done it before. What did you learn from the first leg as a performer? Because you're very good anyway. You're brilliant to talk to. You're brilliant to interview. You're so likeable and you're so knowledgeable and you're so friendly and you're so sort of humble. The opposite of the rest of us in show business, to be honest. What have you learned about show business and about performing that you will deploy? How has the tour evolved for the second leg?
Yeah, well, obviously new things are happening in space, so we're constantly adding new bits of material in there as things happen. The Q&A was interesting. I mean, it's slightly terrifying as a performer, because the rest of it you can control to an extent,
right.
And you know what's happening and pace it. But when you open up to the audience, I do love it, but I'm also terrified about it.
Yeah.
You're never quite sure what you're going to get.
But you don't have any awkward moments, do you? Because people come and they love you.
No, and I do like, it is a free-for-all. I mean, I'll have people asking about flat Earth, about aliens, about moon landings, about everything. So I'll take everything and give it my best shot.
Interesting. We have a few people who subscribe to that theory here who have talked to me about it. And, I mean, with loving kindness, I just listen.
Yeah, and nod sagely, and yeah.
I don't nod because I think that would be sort of disingenuous. I don't really know what to do with that. I mean, I know that you never lose your rag, but that's the closest you come, isn't it, to losing your rag?
Yeah. I think. Well, I visited a school quite recently, and they were doing this experiment with a Met balloon, a meteorological balloon. Oh, that's difficult to say this morning. Meteorological balloon, sending it up with a GoPro camera on it, and they'd taken photos down on Earth. So they knew what the lens was like and everything, and getting these images back, had a GPS tracker on it, and the whole project was about £400 to do this, and sent it up to the edge of space and proved to themselves the not only that the Earth was round, but actually measured the curvature of the Earth and everything else. I thought, if a group of sixth formers can do that as a school for £400, then you shouldn't really be questioning whether the Earth is flat or round.
It's interesting, isn't it? It's interesting. That's such an interesting. Literally an interesting perspective. What about this? Earlier this year, Tim launched a new space activity badge for the Scouts in partnership with the UK Space Agency. I feel sorry for all the other badges. All of a sudden.
I know. We've had 160,000 Scouts this year already complete their Space Explorers badge.
What do you have to do to get that?
Well, depending on the age, because it's throughout all the ages of the Scouts, obviously the complexity increases as you get older. And for the Explorer Scouts, the older groups, they're looking at robotics, controlling, as if you're controlling rovers on Mars, looking at things like the concept of gravity and orbits and building rockets and how rockets would work and spacecraft. So it's really good. It's fun, it's practical, it's hands-on, but it's also, education by stealth. It's getting you interested in science and technology. Because
we know each other a bit now, and we've had these conversations, in fields as well as as well as on the radio. I feel really at ease with you, right? And because I feel really at ease with you, I've just had one of those moments thinking, he's been to space. And I've never really thought that before. But because we're so it's like, can you believe he's been to space? He's actually been to space. Because I run too far sometimes, I got this piriformis thing, and it keeps me awake at night, right? Does anything that happened to you in space keep you awake at night? Physically? Not physically. We're still kind of learning so much, and we haven't had that many astronauts who've done long duration space flights who've yet got that old. So it'll be interesting to see as we get into our 60s and 70s and 80s, what impacts there may be that we didn't know about. Right. So, monitoring levels. But other astronauts have obviously been 80 and 90 years old. Absolutely, yeah. Who've kind of our Apollo astronauts are all, the four survivors are all in their late 80s and 90s.
And so the radiation impact would be interesting there because they would have received quite a high radiation dose.
Can't be bad for you if you make it to your 90s.
Well, exactly. But in terms of the bone density, the muscle atrophy, we recover that quite quickly when we get back down.
Right.
So we're hoping that there are no long-lasting impacts.
And how's the crew doing who went for intended to go for the weekend and ended up staying there for 8 or 9 months? What was it in the end?
That was Butch and Sonny. They went 9 days turned to 9 months. So
how are they doing?
They're doing great. Fine. They'll be going through their rehabilitation, building up the core strength again, lower back muscles. But we can exercise quite well on the space station, so you can keep yourself in good physical shape.
And because it accelerates the aging process temporarily, gives us an insight into what that's like here on Earth. But obviously, it's almost fast forward. I'm 59 and 60 next year. Can you give us any advice as we're getting older? What are the best? If you had to pick 3 exercises to help us with muscle atrophy and bone density, what would they be?
Yeah, well, we weight train. We do high intensity weight training.
Oh, not that.
Okay.
No, I'm joking. No, tell us about that. Go on.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the best things you could do as you get older. It's the muscle ligament interaction with the bone, stimulating the bone growth. So you need that level of stimulation, and by doing heavy weights, not pushing it, but but trying to do some weight training every day, then that helps.
So weights. Give us something else.
Yep, and just ordinary sort of exercise, good walking. You don't have to be doing sprinting or but just getting out, fresh air, walking, getting the heart rate up.
Any food, any dietary tips for us?
We're actually nutrition-wise, we could do with knowing a bit more about nutrition in space. I think that's one area we're lagging behind from exercise. But again, just a balanced, healthy diet is what we look to do. Balance of vitamins, minerals, nutrients. Vitamin D is the only supplement we take on board the space station because we're not getting the sunlight.
Yeah. I have to take that now because I've got to cover up from the sun, so I have to take the vitamin D. Are there any space treats, guilty pleasures that you miss? Because people always say, what do you miss when you're up there? What do you miss when you're back down here?
Yeah, the guilty pleasure that I had up there that I missed were these maple muffin pancakes once every Sunday. And they were
funny.
They were little pancakes soaked in maple syrup.
Who made them?
I have no idea.
So if you want to give Tim a treat, we need to find out. Were they American?
Yeah, I think they're American.
Are they backpacked or?
Yes, backpacks. You would put them in the food heater, warm them up for about 10 minutes, and you just had this warm maple syrup soaked pancake.
Hungry.
It was delicious.
And can you smell things in the space station?
My sense of smell went after about a week, I think, and because all the fluid shifts to your head and face anyway, so you become a bit puffy face, your nose gets blocked up, and you're constantly feeling like you're stuffed up, so your sense of smell deteriorates quite rapidly. So I didn't really smell anything after about a week, which is perhaps not a bad thing.
Wow, it's great, man. So if you want to go and see Tim, but loads of people buy tickets to go and see Tim when he's on the show, because why wouldn't you? It's so great for the kids to go. TimPeake.com, and we're looking at Inverness from September the 1st, couple of nights in Inverness, then Aberdeen, Dunfermline, Carlisle. This is early September. Kendal Leisure Centre, matinee for Kendal. Well done, Kendal. Guildford G Live on September the 9th. And then we're all the way to Eastbourne, Basingstoke, Southend Cliffs, Cheltenham, Bournemouth, Tunbridge, Northampton, Buxton, Stockton, Peterborough, Wolverhampton, Reading, and then into October, Fareham, Weymouth, Oxford, Aylesbury, Cardiff, High Wycombe. I'll come see you in High Wycombe if that's all right. October 7th. Worthing Assembly Hall, Derby, Becketwell Live, another matinee. Further matinee in Chester Story House on October the 12th. Then New Brighton in the northwest at the Floral Pavilion, and then Llandudno venue Cymru, which is great. Anything else you'd like to say, Tim, while you're very welcome to say whatever you like.
Wow, thank you. Well, I tell you, I'm going to give a shout out to Great Ormond Street Hospital. I'm recently become an ambassador for them, working on their new Children's Cancer Centre, where they're raising money, and we had a breaking ground ceremony quite recently. So that's going to be absolutely game-changing and amazing.
Great.
And they do an amazing thing there.
And has
FAM's doing brilliant, thank you. Yes, GCSE's just finished, so congratulations to everyone who's just done their GCSEs and A-levels. It's a real slog, isn't it? I mean, it's really hard work.
Very hard for the family. I mean, come on, students. You take all the glory there, but it's not easy being part of the support. To be honest, it actually isn't. Of course, the kids are going through it all, but you don't know what to do you?
I don't know
whether to get involved or not involved. Do you get on them for revising?
I know. How much do you push them? When do you ease back?
Yeah, and is it their true nature? Because if you get them to revise too much, what about if they do too well? And they don't want to do that for a living, and then, you know what I mean? I don't know. What do you do?
Yeah,
What do you do?
there's-
Any advice for that? Come on, you're good at all this stuff. You're a great teacher. You've been a great student.
Well, I didn't do very well academically. I did. I was all right at GCSEs, but I was the very first year of GCSE, so I think they were giving us an easy time,
Right.
and everybody seemed to score highly. Then I got a C, a D, and an E in my A levels. So, but when I tell students that and go around to schools, they're kind of a bit open-eyed and think, "Wow, and you became an astronaut." But I say, I never worked harder since leaving school. But there's always doors of opportunity open.
Yeah.
So if the exams don't go well, don't sweat it. Don't worry. There's always other ways you can catch up.
And have you given commencement speeches?
I have, yes.
What
Yeah,
do you say there?
Well, again, it's about words of encouragement, really, and hard work and how to apply yourself for the future, about building resilience, all these kind of good skills. And I think the soft skills, when you're talking about people's academic achievements, it's important not to gloss over how important the soft skills are in so many areas
What
of work.
do you mean by soft skills? I know what you mean, but what do you
Yeah, so your ability just to communicate and collaborate with people, how you interact socially, your levels of teamwork, being a good leader, a good follower, and these are kind of skills we practice as astronauts because they're so important to us on board the space station, but they're so important in everyday life as well.
Well, look, we've got some lovely people here from Carfest who are either sponsoring, coming back to sponsor, or thinking about sponsoring Carfest. You've appeared at Carfest, haven't you, a couple of times?
I have
Thank
indeed.
you.
Yeah, I love it.
Are you coming this year?
Yes, I think I am, yeah.
Excellent. All right, so we've got Heather Welsh and Caitlin Owen from EDX Education, Elsa Foy from Citroen, Andrew Curley and Claudia Laurie from Stellantis, who owns Citroen along with other car brands, Jessica Bucket from Philips, Peter Jackson from Jenkinson, and Jake Deacon and Brett Perryman and Sir Giga, or Gig, is it Giga or Giga from Auto Refund. You're all very welcome. But what an extra treat, what a bonus, because you've seen Tim Peake. Give Tim a round of applause. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you very much.
You're absolutely awesome. Always completely awesome. Tim Peake. Brilliant. Go and see Tim, timpeake.com. Go and get tickets, get the kids inspired, get yourselves re-inspired. And why wouldn't you do that? All right, thank you so much.